Imagine a German Shepherd mid-leap.
Oh, yeah, like clearing a massive 6-foot wooden A-frame.
Exactly. With practically zero effort, just twisting in midair and landing with this crazy calculated precision. It's the kind of thing you usually only see in, like, professional gymnastics.
Right, or when you watch them methodically sniffing out some microscopic trace of narcotics in a super crowded airport.
Yeah, because when you see a dog do that, you aren't just looking at a pet. You are looking at a highly specialized, elite biological system.
Absolutely.
But maintaining a high-performance system like that, keeping it running at peak capacity from its very first days all the way into its senior years, that requires a radically different approach than just keeping a casual house pet alive.
It really does.
Huh?
And we have a massive stack of source material on the table today to prove it.
We really do.
We're talking veterinary compendiums, breed-specific metabolic data, and all this behavioral research. And our mission today for this deep dive is to pull all of it apart to build a master-level lifetime health checklist for the German Shepherd. So whether you are prepping for your very first working line puppy, or maybe you're managing a senior dog's mobility, or you just love understanding the mechanics of high-level animal care, we are breaking down the exact biology of what makes this breed tick.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if we are going to look at the dog as a complex piece of biological hardware, we have to understand the base operating system we are installing during puppyhood.
Right, the foundation.
Yeah, you can't successfully run a system if you fundamentally misunderstand the hardware's intended purpose, right? And the German Shepherd was engineered for high-stakes, high-stress work alongside humans.
And that working heritage, it literally dictates everything about their neurochemistry.
How so?
Well, you are dealing with an animal bred for centuries to have this intense, hypervigilant bond with the handler.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they are genetically wired to read microexpressions and subtle shifts in your body language. That emotional sensitivity is precisely what makes them so trainable.
That makes a lot of sense.
But it also means their neurological development during puppyhood is it's incredibly fragile.
Right.
There's this critical socialization window between roughly 3 and 16 weeks of age, and that is when their brain is mapping out what is safe and what is a threat.
If I can push back on the prevailing advice for a second, though.
Sure, go ahead.
When you've got an animal that is going to grow into an 80 or 90-pound powerhouse, an animal literally bred to guard livestock or apprehend suspects, the instinct for a lot of people is to assume you need this sort of alpha mentality.
Oh, totally. The whole dominance theory thing.
Exactly. It feels counterintuitive to use gentle, trust-based methods when you are installing the foundational software on such a potentially dangerous piece of hardware. I mean, doesn't a powerful system like that need hard, rigid limits?
What's fascinating here is that applying force to this specific breed actually creates a catastrophic misfire in their neurochemistry.
Wait, really? A misfire?
Yeah. Because they are so attuned to their handler, using fear or physical dominance just spikes their cortisol levels. You aren't teaching them compliance.
What are you teaching them then?
You are just teaching them that you are unpredictable and dangerous. And when you elevate the stress hormones in an already hypervigilant breed, that anxiety inevitably bleeds into reactivity.
So they lash out because they're stressed, not because they're tough.
Exactly. Trust-based training works because it leverages their genetic desire to cooperate. You are building a secure attachment.
I see.
When the dog actually trusts the handler, their cognitive load drops, the anxiety just disappears, and you get that flawless, laser-focused obedience the breed is so famous for.
So it's the difference between a system operating smoothly because the code is clean versus a system just freezing up because there's constant friction and background errors.
That is a great way to look at it.
And while we are talking about this foundational stage, we have to look at the physical hardware assembly too, like the skeletal growth, because these dogs grow at a terrifyingly rapid pace.
Oh man, they really do.
A puppy can gain several pounds a week, and their skeletal system is incredibly vulnerable during that rapid expansion, right?
Yeah, the biomechanics of a growing puppy are super often misunderstood. A puppy's skeleton isn't just a miniature version of an adult skeleton.
Right, it's fundamentally different.
Exactly. Their long bones have these things called growth plates. They're basically areas of soft, multiplying cartilage at the ends of the bones.
Okay.
And those plates don't fully fuse into solid bone until the dog is anywhere from 14 to 18 months old, especially in large breeds like the Shepherd.
Meaning that if you take your 6-month-old puppy for like a 5-mile forced jog on pavement,
Which you should never do.
Right. Or you have them constantly jumping out of the back of a high pickup truck.
Yeah.
You are putting massive repetitive impact on soft tissue that hasn't hardened yet. You are literally warping the hardware before the assembly is finished.
Which structurally alters the joints for the rest of the dog's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it drastically increases the risk of early onset osteoarthritis, and it exacerbates any genetic joint issues. The foundation has to be set perfectly. You protect the joints physically while you stimulate the brain psychologically.
Let's transition from the initial hardware assembly into the daily operational mechanics. So the dog is grown, the growth plates are fused, the base OS is installed.
The machine is running.
Exactly. And the two pillars of running this machine every single day are fuel intake and energy output, basically nutrition and exercise.
Right.
But let's elevate this past the basic feed your dog and walk them advice, because the biomechanical reality of maintaining a lean body condition in a German Shepherd is staggering.
It is. The multiplier effect of weight on a dog's joints is where we see the most preventable damage.
How does that multiplier effect work?
Well, when a dog walks, the force exerted on their hips and elbows isn't just one-to-one with their body weight. Depending on the gait, especially trotting or running, the kinetic forces can be 3 to 4 times their actual weight.
So, if a German Shepherd is carrying just 5 extra pounds of fat, that is roughly 15 to 20 extra pounds of concussive force grinding into the cartilage of their hip joints with every single running stride.
Exactly.
Over the course of a 5-mile hike, that is thousands upon thousands of micro impacts slowly degrading the joint capsule.
That is the biological reality. Keeping a German Shepherd at a lean body condition, meaning you can easily feel their ribs without pressing hard, and they have a highly visible waist tuck, is arguably the single most effective orthopedic intervention an owner can make.
Just by keeping them skinny.
Yeah. It physically alters the amount of friction inside the joint capsule, which can delay the onset of degenerative joint diseases by literally years.
Which brings up the energy output side of the equation. We know we need to keep them moving to maintain that lean muscle mass, which acts like a shock absorber for the skeleton.
Right, muscle is crucial.
But there's this pervasive myth that tiring out a working dog means you just need to run them until they drop. If we stick to our system metaphor, physical exercise without mental engagement is just spinning the cooling fans without ever utilizing the CPU.
I love that analogy, because running a German Shepherd mindlessly on a treadmill or like throwing a ball for 2 hours straight often just creates an elite canine athlete with massive physical endurance.
So you aren't fixing the problem, you're just leveling them up.
You are just building a dog that takes way longer to get tired. The key to actually exhausting a working breed lies in their neurobiology, specifically the olfactory bulb.
The processing power required for scent work.
Exactly. A dog's brain devotes an enormous amount of real estate to analyzing smells, something like 40 times more brain space than humans use for olfaction.
That's incredible.
Analyzing a complex scent puzzle is the canine equivalent of doing calculus while playing chess.
Yeah.
When you make a German Shepherd use their nose to track a specific scent, or when you engage them in high-level obedience training where they have to decipher subtle commands, you are flooding their brain with cognitive demands.
So it burns actual energy.
Oh, absolutely. The glucose depletion in the brain from just 15 minutes of intense, focused mental work will put a German Shepherd to sleep faster and deeper than a mindless 3-mile run.
Because you have to run those complex background apps. You have to engage the processor, not just the physical servos.
Precisely.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because you can install the OS perfectly, you can keep the hardware incredibly lean, you can optimize the fuel and the mental processing, and you can still encounter catastrophic system failures.
Yeah, that's the hard truth of biology.
Complex biological systems have specific known hardware bugs. We need to transition from daily operation into the medical vulnerabilities of the breed.
The German Shepherd, due to its specific genetic bottlenecking and its structural breeding history, has a very distinct profile of predispositions. We are looking at conditions like gastric dilatation volvulus, commonly known as bloat,
Right.
exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI, degenerative myelopathy, and of course hip and elbow dysplasia.
Let's break the biology of these down, because honestly, they are terrifying if you don't understand the mechanisms.
They really are.
Bloat, or GDV, is an acute critical hardware failure. This breed has a deep, narrow chest cavity, and from a mechanical standpoint, the stomach is suspended in that cavity somewhat like a hammock.
And under certain conditions, often eating a massive meal and then immediately engaging in high-intensity exercise, though it can honestly happen spontaneously,
Yeah.
that hammock swings.
And then what
The
happens?
stomach fills with gas, expands like a balloon, and then physically twists on its own axis.
So it cuts off its own blood supply. The entry and exit valves of the stomach are completely twisted shut.
Exactly.
And the tissue starts dying within minutes, and the expanding gas puts massive pressure on the surrounding organs and the diaphragm, sending the dog into systemic shock.
It is a drop-everything surgical emergency.
Wow. And then you have the more insidious chronic metabolic failures, like exocrine pancreatic insufficiency.
Yeah, EPI is a devastating malfunction of the digestive system. The pancreas is responsible for secreting exocrine enzymes, um, amylase, lipase, and protease, which literally break down carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in the small intestine.
But in a dog with EPI, the acinar cells in the pancreas atrophy and die. They stop producing those chemical solvents.
Right.
So you have a dog that is voraciously hungry, eating massive quantities of high-quality fuel, but their body cannot physically unlock the macronutrients.
The food just passes right through them.
They are essentially starving to death while eating 5 bowls of food a day.
It's awful to see.
Mm.
Fortunately, once it is diagnosed through a specific blood test, it is highly manageable.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, you essentially bypass the hardware failure by adding powdered synthetic pancreatic enzymes directly to their food before they eat it.
Oh, so you're pre-digesting the meal right in the bowl? Which is a brilliant biohack. But then we look at the neurological vulnerabilities, like degenerative myelopathy or DM. This is essentially the canine equivalent of ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, right?
Uncomfortably similar, yeah. We're talking about the gradual degradation of the myelin sheath, which is the protective insulation wrapped around the spinal cord nerves.
And without that insulation.
Without it, the electrical signals from the brain simply cannot reach the hind legs.
That's terrifying.
It starts as a subtle dragging of the back paws, maybe a slight crossing of the legs when they turn, and over months or years, it progresses to complete paralysis of the hindquarters.
And there's no cure.
No. It is painless, but it is a progressive, irreversible breakdown of the communication pathways in the nervous system.
And we can't talk about German Shepherds without talking about the structural mechanics of hip dysplasia.
Right, the classic shepherd issue.
A normal hip joint is a perfectly fitted ball and socket, gliding smoothly with the help of synovial fluid and cartilage. But dysplasia means abnormal growth.
Yeah, the socket is often too shallow, or the ball is misshapen. Instead of gliding, the joint rattles.
Ouch.
And that laxity, that looseness in the joint, creates constant microtrauma every time the dog takes a step.
Which causes inflammation.
Yes. And the body's biological response to that friction is to lay down more bone to try and stabilize the joint, which leads to massive, painful bone spurs and severe arthritis.
You know, looking at this list, stomach's twisting, pancreas is failing, spinal cord short-circuiting, and joints grinding, it is enough to make any owner super paranoid. How do you manage a high-performance system with so many known critical bugs without just hovering over the dog in a constant state of panic?
This raises an important question because the clinical shift in perspective here is understanding the difference between a genetic predisposition and a guaranteed certainty.
Okay, clarify that.
A predisposition simply means the breed's biological threshold for these conditions is lower than that of, say, a mixed breed dog. It dictates where you focus your preventive maintenance. Routine checkups aren't about stopping the genetics.
Right, a standard checkup can't stop the myelin sheath from degrading or deepen a shallow hip socket.
Exactly. It's about data collection and baseline tracking. If the veterinarian examines the dog every 6 months, they establish a highly specific biological baseline.
So they know what normal looks like for that specific dog.
Right. They palpate the joints to check for early laxity before the bone spurs form. They weigh the dog on the exact same scale to catch a subtle 2-pound drop that might indicate the earliest stages of EPI before the dog starts visibly starving.
So the goal is early detection.
Catching the data shift so early that your management interventions, like starting joint supplements, modifying their exercise, or running blood panels, actually have time to work.
You become the system administrator of the dog's life. You aren't just reacting to crashes, you are running constant background diagnostics.
Exactly.
And as the dog ages, you have to continually patch and update the operating system. You cannot run Puppy OS on a 10-year-old hardware frame. The metabolic requirements completely change.
The digestive tract of a senior dog slows down, meaning they absorb fewer nutrients from the exact same volume of food.
Makes sense?
The cartilage in their joints thins out. Their thermal regulation becomes less efficient, meaning they get colder faster and overheat quicker.
So updating to Senior OS means you change the parameters. You might switch to a diet with highly digestible proteins to accommodate the aging GI tract.
Right.
You might put down rugs on hardwood floors because the stabilizing muscles in their hindquarters have atrophied. And slipping on wood puts sudden, extreme shear force on their aging hips.
You also shift your diagnostic focus entirely. A system administrator looking at an older machine starts looking for different warning signs.
Like what?
You watch the water bowl. A sudden, persistent increase in thirst isn't just a quirky behavior change. It is often the first clinical indicator of a renal hardware issue like kidney disease or an endocrine misfire like diabetes.
Wow. And that level of observation requires impeccable record keeping. You have to know the baseline to spot the anomaly.
It is essential.
We are talking about organizing their medical data, tracking their weight fluctuations, and logging their vaccination titers. A lot of modern owners use digital tools, specialized apps like VitalPet, to manage this data so they can hand a complete organized system history to their vet in an emergency.
Yeah, the data management is vital, provided it fuels the most important checklist item of all the clinical partnership.
The vet and the owner working together.
Exactly. The owner brings the intimate, daily observational data like knowing exactly how the dog normally rises from a resting position, or exactly what their resting respiratory rate looks like.
Because the vet doesn't live with them.
Right. The veterinarian brings the clinical pathology and the medical mechanics to interpret that data. Neither operates effectively without the other.
So what does this all mean? If we step back from the microbiology of pancreatic enzymes and joint kinetics, the core thesis of maintaining this elite biological system is proactive, highly observant management.
Yeah.
It's understanding the exact mechanics of the dog in front of you. You don't build lifelong health for a German Shepherd with a single magical supplement.
No, you don't.
You build it by keeping the hardware lean, continuously engaging the complex cognitive software, respecting the genetic vulnerabilities, and adjusting the inputs as the system ages.
It requires a profound level of daily presence. And we connect this to the bigger picture. The discipline of caring for a highly sensitive, complex breed like this has an interesting spillover effect.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We train ourselves to notice the absolute subtlest shifts in their behavior. A millimeter of stiffness in a gait, a slight change in the intensity of their focus, a fraction of a delay in their response time.
You essentially have to become fluent in a completely nonverbal biological language.
Which leaves you with something very interesting to consider. If achieving peak health and performance for our dogs requires us to cultivate this intense, quiet, daily attentiveness to their subtle, nonverbal cues,
how might practicing that exact same discipline radically transform how present and observant we are in our own human relationships?
Wow. That is a phenomenal question. Imagine applying that level of baseline tracking and subtle observation to the people around us.
right?
Recognizing the micro shifts in their stress levels before the system crashes. When you truly dive into the mechanics of caring for a complex life, it honestly changes how you look at everything.
It really does.
We highly encourage you to take this framework, look at the biological systems living in your own house, and see where you can upgrade your observation.
Thank you for joining us in the deep dive.
We will catch you next time.